So I'm going to do a reaction to Anthony Fantano's reaction to Eminem. Now, Fantano's been kind of known as somebody that really isn't fond of Eminem's recent work. That's putting it very kindly. Even kind of remembering him not like it kind of aging badly, him saying that in the past. The title of this video, Eminem drops some mid. I mean, let's see what he has to say here.
Hey buddy, did you hear the news? It's track reviews.
Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a track review. My thoughts on a brand new single. This one, Houdini, Eminem. Guess who's back? You already know. You don't need to guess. To say Eminem is at a weird point in his career right now is kind of putting it lightly, because he's simultaneously one of the most objectively important and influential rappers of all time, but also one of the most polarizing, hated, and disrespected too. To the point where I find myself sometimes defending him in conversations that try to completely erase every contribution he's made to rap music.
Yeah, that is to be fair to Fantano. I would say that there has been certain conversations that try, like Eminem is just never released a good song. There's been people in that crowd saying he's a completely terrible artist, kind of negating all of the, I would say you could say the first three albums are classics, quote unquote. Very important to his discography. But let's see what else he's got here.
But by that same token, I can't really ignore the fact that artistically he has fallen off really hard in recent years. Something his own most hardcore fans try to ignore as much as possible, though the insecurities around that are still very much there in the tea leaves. Like, ask yourself, if current day Eminem is so good, then why can't he go a teaser single or an entire new album without living in the past or obsessing over the old him? I mean,
I can understand what he's trying to say here, right? For like the Houdini, right? This is kind of like a mixture of like Without Me, Real Slim Shady. To me, because I think the Houdini track was pretty solid. I enjoyed it. The chorus was was paying homage to a 1982 song, I believe it was. And that's the one thing I've noticed as Eminem's gotten older, and he even did it actually in his earlier music too, but he kind of likes to go into like these older tracks and I would say show appreciation for the music that has come before him. But I would have to say, I don't think every single track or every single album is him just rehashing what he has done in the past. Has there been certain singles that have, him talking about his success in the past or talking about what he's dealt throughout in his life? But I've seen that in other artists as well. Now, does Eminem have the problem of maybe kind of going through that a little bit too much? I mean, I can maybe understand that argument. But the Music to Be Murdered series, Side A and Side B, I thought there was a lot of good music on those albums. And maybe it's not his cup of tea, but I think that's kind of a reach there by Fantano.
At the end of the day, there's no real knowing what exactly is driving this dichotomy within Eminem and his music, as clearly there's some kind of internal struggle going on between a guy who clearly wants to keep being the boundary pusher that he was when he broke onto the scene, a button pusher as well. In concept, I think he wants to keep rattling cages, but doing that would mean breaking away from his past on some level, and his past work, his past successes, his past records are the only reason he continues to be relevant right now. Which brings us...
Whoa, that's okay, so this is that's a reach. The only reason he continues to be relevant. Eminem is one of the most streamed artists on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music. No, Eminem doesn't keep reaching back into his bag to keep relevance. That's a silly take by Fantano. That's a very, very silly take. Even his recent music, he still sells out stadiums, arenas. Just like every artist, though, like when artists get older, and this is the thing, is Eminem older now. He's no longer mid-20s, early 30s. you know, he's been around the block quite a bit. And like most music acts, as you get older, you go to your concerts, you sell at these stadiums, you're still going to go to your old material because that's what people enjoy. But he still also performs his new material as well. Uh, I mean, all his albums, I mean, sales wise, do very, very well. I mean, even on stream. So to say that he's only relevant due to his older stuff, I think, yeah, that's definitely a reach.
Us to his latest track and single here, Houdini, which I've spun several times over at this point, and it's pretty clear what Eminem is going for on this track. I mean, the song literally kicks off with a chorus that references past moments in his music when he's sung us reminders that, oh, he's back. Guess who's back? Which makes you have to wonder, how many comebacks can a single artist even have? Still, I will admit, flow-wise and musically, I think what Eminem is offering on this track is better than pretty much anything on Revival and Kamikaze, in terms of it just being generally listenable. And
So he's not even going to reference his last two projects he's released. I mean, Kamikaze, I thought was fine. I mean, Revival, I wasn't a fan of that one, so I'm not going to sit here and BS you. Kamikaze, do I go back to it continually? But every once in a while, yeah, I'll listen to it. It's a fine record. It's, but he doesn't even...
pretty hooky. But I think the reason this track works to the extent that it does is Eminem is just essentially coloring in the lines on this song, painting by numbers, rehashing ideas that he knows have worked for him in the past, and offering nothing else in addition to that, point blank, period. The question is, does it actually hold a candle to any of that past work? And does this shtick still work in 2024 in the same way that it did in 1999? And I think for anybody who's not living in the past, the answer is going to be no. I mean, again, the production and chorus on the track sound fine, but I would much rather just listen to a track from one of Eminem's first three albums if I wanted something on this spectrum. And lyrically, of course, Eminem is trying to channel the old him once again, but I think he is doing kind of a piss poor job of it. We have all these descriptions of Eminem being bad and devilish, and you know, he's a big old misbehaving guy, a rapscallion. But the thing is, Eminem current day is not really the controversial figure that he used to be back in the early 2000s.
So this is the interesting part of this conversation. As for him referencing older material, I mean, the guy's in his 50s, for God's sakes. You know, all his daughters are grown. A lot of, maybe this is just me, and you can correct me in the comments, but I've seen a lot of artists, whether it was R&B, hip hop, rap, rock, like when they get older, they'll reference and have references to their, you know, earlier music, kind of as, whether kind of braggadociously or just even just in reference. Of course, it's early Eminem and how controversial he was. I mean, sometimes they'll have some throwbacks to it, but it's like this guy hasn't heard any of the recent stuff Eminem's released. This is not like it's him just coming into it like later on out of nowhere. I mean, there's always been kind of signs of it. I mean, famously him going into it back and forth with MGK, going back and forth with Joe Budden. There's just to say, or I mean, recently, even the Benzino thing on the Doomsday remix that he did. I just think Melon here is being a little bit off. And as for him not being like, you going back to his earlier albums, I mean, I have a lot of friends, my co-hosts of my podcast, they're the same way. They like his older music, and that's completely fine. But I also think it's kind of ridiculous to expect a guy in his 50s to have that same hunger. And at this point in his career, with how much music he has released, I mean, it gets more and more difficult to to release something new. Like if he was in his mid 20s, early 30s, I would kind of get his point more here. But the guy's in his 50s and he's still releasing pretty solid music, at least in my opinion.
And anybody who thinks so clearly does not remember vividly in the way that I and anyone my age does, just how much of an enemy number one type figure Eminem was in the music industry, in terms of him just being an awful person, a bad influence, really a blight on the music industry at large. Meanwhile, today, his shtick and status as an influential figure in popular music is more or less accepted even by people that don't really like his stuff. I mean, even the way the term stan is used current day is proof that Eminem has massive impact on the popular music vernacular at large, just across the board. So excuse me if in 2024, I kind of feel like Eminem trying to sell himself as somebody who's like, this daring outsider type figure who nobody gets and just isn't like really all that.
I don't know how he took this at all from this. Like, I don't. This song, and especially the music video, was just more for the fans. And that's the funny part. Like, this guy saying him listening to the earlier Eminem music, and while it's not necessarily the same flow-wise, there's definitely differences now, and there's a little bit of a different sample. It was kind of like a song and music video for the fans that have been around for a while, not just the people in the last few years. I guess that's where I didn't really take away from that song. I thought Eminem, just personally, he was going back to his old days where he was just kind of having fun on the track. And he looked like he was having fun in the music video. He was taking himself less seriously. I don't know. I don't really agree with what he's saying.
It's just not true. It's BS. Eminem literally could say almost anything on a track today, and it's not going to hurt his bottom line in the long run, even with the headlines and head turns that were stirred as a result of the Megan Thee Stallion feet bar on this track, which is kind of the first big controversial to do on this song, which, I mean, yes, again, has generated a lot of conversation, but as somebody who used to be a big Eminem fan when he first broke back in the day, my response is pretty much like, is this all you got? This is you channeling the old Eminem and going back? This is it?
Because he's in his 50s. I'm sorry. I get what he's trying to say here, but do you want the old angry Eminem who was in a bad headspace, who, if you are a fan of Eminem or you know about his struggles, you don't want him to go back to that mindset. You just don't. Fantano is somebody to me, he just comes off as an Eminem hater, and maybe that's not his cup of tea, but at the same time, like, Kendrick Lamar will drop some music, and I do like Kendrick Lamar's music for the most part, but Kendrick Lamar can drop like a song where he's just farting and pooping on it, and Fantano would give it a 10 out of 10, right? Okay, maybe that's not a bit fair because he was a little bit critical on Mr. L and the Big Steppers. I'd have to remember his score, but he still gave him a decent score. But he definitely, it's weird to expect a 50-year-old man to act like when he was in his 20s, when he was all hopped up on drugs and he was going through a ton of bad things at that point in his life. Of course he's going to be different. He's not going to be as edgy. As you get older, you do lose that edge. That's just called maturing.
Like, what is he really putting on the line by dropping a bar like this? He actually would chance alienating a lot more people if he made the same joke but flipped it in a way where it was at Tory Lanez's expense, because likely Eminem's audience has quite a bit of crossover with the Cro-Magnon knuckleheads that would make a very similar joke about Megan getting shot in the foot, or just questioning whether or not there's any validity to her claims against Tory in the first place, which he was convicted for, by the way. I wonder what the old me would say. Everything is gay. The thing about old Eminem, though, is that he used to be perceived as an extreme cultural danger to white America and suburbanites, and he's just not really offering anything in his new material here to kind of continue pushing on that front. He now more or less seems to be just kind of enjoying the spoils of being accepted by that demographic of people. And this unspoken truth is something that keeps him in a very safe position culturally, because it's exactly this same demo of people who he now appeals to with no question. generation who would absolutely love to see him drop a bar about a female rapper getting shot, drop a bar about transgenders where they can just go hee hee ha ha in response. You know, all I can really say is that
What? What? No, it's not that deep. He's just, I don't know. I understand Fantano's leanings. I get it. But to just paint a broad brush like that, I mean, come on. I mean, come on. Like, there's been tons of music, even just the music to Be Murdered by Side B that he's come out, and it's not been that crazy. It's actually even funny. Where is it? Where's that song? Yeah, it was Darkness. Sorry, I was slipping in my mind. Darkness that he released that was very political. And I thought he did a very good job on that track. While I might not have the same opinion on guns as Eminem, I can appreciate the artistry. I think Fantano wants Eminem. It's weird, right? He wants him to be kind of vicious, but vicious for his type of causes. I guess that's kind of what I'm picking up on here. It's just
that it's unfortunate. It's truly unfortunate and sad that we have a guy who is one of the most successful and widely selling artists on the planet, who is decades and decades into one of the most lucrative music careers ever, and yet he is still stuck on a hamster wheel where he's chasing the ghosts of his past and just cannot stand to actually be his living current day self, which makes the transgender cat bar hilariously ironic, because if anybody's suffering from a crisis of identity, it's fucking Eminem. So yeah, this track is annoying. It's mid. It's boring. Eminem fans need to stop kidding themselves and stop pushing this guy to stop being his older self too, because it's never going to be like it was 20 years ago. I promise you. And I'm going to leave it there. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe.
You know, it's interesting because I really did. The whole transgender bar was just a quick little flip. I didn't really think that was that big of a deal. He's just poking fun with just people in general. I mean, he's made fun of pretty much everybody. I don't think that should be off the table. And I don't know if I'll get canceled when I say this, so I'm going to kind of walk this line very carefully. When you put a group of people on a pedestal and make it so that they cannot be made fun of and you cannot crack jokes, I'm not saying mean-spirited. I'm not saying to like make jokes to cause them harm, but just lighthearted stuff, and you put them on this pedestal where they're just untouchable. I don't really agree with that philosophy. I mean, shoot, I just think you make jokes, and jokes are jokes. They shouldn't be that deep. And as for Fantano, I can understand him not enjoying Eminem's music, and that is what it is, but he likes to paint a broad brush on the Eminem fan base, and considering some of the recent music Eminem has released, I'm just not too sure how much he really listens to it. I don't know if he's tired of it, bored of it, whatever it is, but it just seems like he just hates Eminem for no reason. I don't know. I get it. Not your cup of tea. Definitely some leaps in reasoning taken there, but let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you agree with Fantano, or do you think he's being too harsh? See you in the next one.